No, come on, let me back in.
Nah, man, get out of here. We don't want you anymore.
What's this? What are we trying to get rid of me for? I don't understand.
It's all right. We're just offering you out for clubs. You'll be fine.
Huh?
It doesn't look like anybody wants you, so you can come back in now.
No, it's fine.
You really can come back
It's
in
actually
now.
kind of nice out here.
Nobody wants you. Please,
No,
for
I'm
the love
good.
of all that's good and holy, please come back. Please come back to
Stop
the club.
grumbling. It's not becoming.
Hey, at the end of this video, there's going to be a minute of the history podcast that I run, which if that's not your thing, then by all means, don't listen to it and ignore it. But if you do like it, you listen to that minute at the end of this video, you go, cool, we are coming out with another episode of that history podcast very soon. It could already be out right now, and the link is in the description. Football Manager is harder than it was last year, and I made a video talking about the first reason why. Here we're now talking about the second reason why, and the one that a lot of you have noticed, that's transfers, particularly transfers out, are much harder than they were last year. I mean, let's take a look at my transfer strategy last year. Like in old Football Managers, you offer a player out for unspecified, or you start at an amount of money, lock it, and continue to work your way down. You can also start at an amount of money, leave it unlocked, which is essentially unspecified but stirring the pot, and whoever is interested can come back with a better offer. This was a simple time where you could fleece clubs all around you for a ton of money. Football Manager, in an attempt to fix it, has gone very far in the other direction. But look, you know me. And you know that when I say that, I'm going to have a list for you. So there are 3 things that Football Manager has changed with the transfer out system that have made it much harder and taken this from one of my favorite parts of the game to an absolute living hell and nightmare that I feel like I'm never going to escape from. And I'm going to live in the rest of my life, for the rest of my life, in this world where I just can never sell anybody and everybody's mad at me all the time in my team. And we're just going to be miserable and they're all going to keep yelling at me and I'm going to lose my whole team through dynamics and sell them all. But who am I going to sell them to? Because nobody wants to buy them. And then when they... And number 1 is what we touched on at the end of the last video. It's the transfer amount saga. The asking price. Football Manager has introduced player reactions to you naming an asking price, which is kind of annoying. We'll get to that later. They've created this whole system where if I go to God's Power Tower and transfers and I set his asking price to 225 million, he will come back and say he feels that that asking price is way above his value. This is annoying because, as we've covered in previous Football Managers, if I really liked a player, I would set a ridiculously high asking price on them. I would usually set asking prices on everybody on my team. I would go through my squad. I gotta make sure not to confirm this change because this is my Twitch save, which if you want to watch, link in the description. And if you want to track on YouTube because you don't like Twitch, I have a live YouTube channel where you can watch it like an episode. But I go through my entire squad and set an asking price on every player so that if I got that amount of money, that's how much it would take for somebody to buy that player. If I really liked the player, the asking price would be insanely high, but every once in a while the team would think that was justifiable, or they'd at least become interested. And you see that through, you know, let's go to Stefan Nutz here, or my boy Steven Nuts. You can see major and minor interest from clubs, and of course your recent offer section, which is usually more useful when you're looking at guys on other teams, because if somebody on your team has received an offer, you should know that. So you obviously just cannot do that anymore. But there's another inherent issue. What your agent is saying, like the agent of this player is saying, never right. Literally never. I have been testing this since November. It's never right. If you go to the top of their asking price, so the first one that says happy with that asking price, right? I'm going to confirm and hit continue. There is a 0% chance that Steven Nuts is happy right now, and I'm right. I didn't have to redo this simulation. Ask Reese. It's every time. I don't know why. I don't know what that's attempting to simulate. Maybe the agent's not entirely in touch with the player, so it's possible that they get it wrong. But if that's the case, then shouldn't the agent have to explain it to the player instead of me having to explain to the player why the agent told me that was an acceptable asking price? The agent told me that was okay. Why is it my problem? And now this is the type of anger that when you're going through this negotiation, if your boy can't resolve it, which for this case, I'm just going to go discuss this with Stefan Nutz, he is legitimately angry. So I can either say it's a little high and you can remove it. I can compromise and find a fair asking price, so I can try and get him to accept it. But he is hot. So even if I agree, well, he's encouraged. But a lot of people won't be. It's a good proof that I didn't accidentally do this. So he's dropped his treated unfairly concern. So you can like walk your way out of that. If you pick the middle option and you go for let's set an asking price, you're basically saying we are going to sell you. But the problem is you don't know what asking price they think is fair until after you click it. General rule of thumb is if you're setting the asking price, you're going to want to go lower than what they have, like significantly lower. So if I was doing this live on stream, I would find the top of be happy with that asking price. Holy smokes. That feels high. So I would come down to probably like 3.5 and work on 3.7 and work under a general assumption that that was going to be okay. See, I'm just not going to save this progress. And I was still too high. Come on. See, it's an imperfect science that I don't have a feel for because it's the first year we have to do this. There is a way to handle this, but we're going to get to that at the end of the video. Or rules of thumb to make you better. Number 2, you can no longer offer a player out without them becoming aware of it. In the past, in the golden days, I could go to Joel Benegas and I could offer him to clubs, and then you would offer them out unspecified just to test the interest. Hey, who would want to put an offer in on this player? Well, now, if I do that, I've got the agent sitting in my ear going, hey, man, you might not react well to that. Freaking out of here, man. Make me hate agents in this game more than I hate them in real life already. This means you can no longer test the waters with offers, which I shouldn't need to explain how incredibly valuable that is. But if you offer a player out, it's over. And as I found out, if you set an asking price for a player and then you have your captain talk that player out of them being upset about the asking price, so they accept that asking price, and then you offer them out to different clubs. You go to the offer clubs and offer them out for that asking price. They can then get mad at you again for you attempting to set their asking price there again, which of course their asking price was already there, but you're offering them out, and so you're attempting to set their asking price there again. And that might have been $82 million, and this might have been Adama Traore. What is this? What? We just talked him out of thinking that asking price was unreasonable. This means that instead of being the beginning process in a fact-finding mission, the asking price and the offering out to clubs for unspecified or for a certain amount just to see if it was possible to see what they were thinking, that all goes through the player now, realistic or not, right? So that all, you can't do any of that as a fact-finding mission, which takes away essentially your scouting ability for transfers. This makes you blind and or dependent on offers coming in from clubs unprompted to set your transfer agenda for outgoing transfers. And considering I have talked about before how outgoing transfers are the single most important revenue source for all clubs except for those clubs biggest in the world, especially when you're making your transition to trying to get a balance of 50, 100, 200 million, the outgoing transfers are the most important thing for you to weaponize to get to that point quickly, and they are so much harder, which makes climbing up in the game so much harder. Number 3, transfer negotiations. So with Adama Traore, who you've just seen, I had a magnificent moment with on the network save where I play against Dr. Benji Lulujo and Work the Space every Thursday. That's also on Twitch, by the way, or on the YouTube. You get the idea. And we're trying to offer out Adama Traore because we had a news article that said Tottenham wanted for 88 million. We offered him out for 82, which he'd already agreed to, and nobody wanted him. We then offered him out unspecified, and we got an offer for 46 million up front and 11 million over the next 2 years. We also got another offer for 35 million that I ignored and laughed at. Now, after those 2 offers, what does the old school of Zealand tell you to do? Turn those offers down and offer out for a fixed of, I don't know, what would you accept? 65, 70 million, and see if either of those teams want to meet that. And then you just work your way down until somebody offers. That's not how Football Manager 22 works at all. Now, it's very opaque. There are no reasons given. As you can see on the screen, we're working with the Adama Traore. Like, there's no reasons given here. But the offers may never come back. And more likely than not, it won't. That was the one time they're going to make that offer. So it's gone from too easy, where you could offer a player out 20 times and go 20, 25, 30, 35. Like, you still interested? And find their exact max interest over the process for a couple of days. Now, you get an offer, and if you turn it down, they're probably not going to offer again. And if they do, they're probably not going to go higher than that. And oftentimes, if you reject a transfer offer from a club, they'll just disappear from the interest. And that's your only barometer for what teams are going to be interested. I mean, just look at Adama Traore's interest screen now. That Tottenham's not there, right? RB Leipzig is not there. After that one transfer was rejected, they were gone. And so it went from being very easy to negotiate with teams to being very opaque with no reasoning, and those teams just losing interest instantly. So the interest is incredibly fickle, and they will just disappear if they feel like they're not getting what they wanted. And you don't know exactly what that was. The end result is that we have a system that's just about as realistic as the last one. The last one, the negotiations were a little too robotic, and here is your answer for exact amount, and oh, you offered it. There was no human interaction. There was no, oh, you rejected our last offer, we might not offer again, here's why, we're thinking that's too much, whatever. Now it is, here's the money, you didn't take it, see ya. And all your players are mad because you set an asking price wrong once, negotiated a new one, and they never want to talk to you again. But there are ways to survive, ways that I have learned particularly over the last couple transfer windows and on Twitch to get around this, and lessons I would have loved to have had when I was dealing with the Adama Traore situation. You should only be setting asking prices and offering players out if, one, they don't care, and that is just for offering players out. You can come here and look to offer a player out, and it will say instead of they won't react well, you go to somebody else that you know doesn't care and doesn't necessarily want to be here, be very interested in speaking to other clubs. Cool. Offer him out. But if you set an asking price, of course, and it's wrong, which means you don't offer out unspecified, but you offer out for a certain amount of money, then they will freak out. And if they get an offer from a team that they definitely want to go to, they will start to cause a problem because you rejected the offer from that team. But it's at least safer than just making them mad right away. So only do this unless you really want to get rid of the player, and you know that for a fact, and there's no debate, there's no feeling out process here. Or you do that if there are a lot of interested parties. And you might not be sure if you want to get rid of them, but the lot of interested parties basically guarantees that if you set an asking price, even if they get mad, you're going to be able to sell them. I would say at least 4 or 5 interested parties would be a good line, because you will probably get close to what you want from one of them. But you always, no testing the waters here, have to be aware that you offering them out or setting an asking price could cost you that player. If they're controversial, they're temperamental, they're volatile, and you are worried about losing them, literally do not do this at all. Look at their media handling style, which if you don't have my skin installed will be under information, and if it is any of those bad things, even if they're not professional, you are rolling the dice, because you can't then just back off and say, hey, sorry, I did it wrong, like we just did with Elias. Who was that? Stefan Nutz, I think, and we were fine. You just have to be more committed to selling a player, and if you're going to go in for it, make sure there's a lot of interest, and that interest is going to be a team with an amount of money that's going to be helpful for you. It's not just a team that's hoping they can get the player on the cheap. You have to do more of your thinking early, less of your thinking late. But Football Manager 22 is definitely harder as a result. I will see you guys in another video, a stream, or perhaps a podcast. Here is a minute of armchair history. It should come as no surprise that when Leonidas was guarding the pass at Thermopylae, and Xerxes offered the Emperor of Persia to spare his men if they gave up their arms, said, will you give up your arms? We will spare you. And Leonidas' response is one of the most famous in all history. He sent the message back and said what in Greek is molonlabe. Come and take them. It's actually the motto of the Greek First Army Corps.